Thanks, guys. We're here this morning for our first live in-studio guest. We're talking with Chris Richards from Steam Logistics. He's the Director of International Sales. Chris, you were here about a month ago, and we were talking all about what it takes to kind of get people moving in this hot freight market, especially on the ocean side. Has it cooled down at all, or are we still just insane?
Yeah, so it's still insane. So like you mentioned, I'm Chris Richards at Steam Logistics. We're an international logistics company that offers international drayage, domestic, and customs clearance services. And yeah, the freight market has been absolutely crazy. Obviously, with the rising prices, we've seen some extreme growth. We've hired 100 people this year across all departments. We've opened 2 new offices in Birmingham and Minneapolis. And we're just seeing this extreme growth. Obviously, culture is the reason why. We expect a lot from our people, but they're rewarded when they work hard. And right now, everyone's having to work hard to get space on container vessels.
Yeah, so what have been the biggest challenges? What do you think? At least tell me about, let's talk about this growth actually, because you got 100 new people. What is it like training those people in such a tight environment? Like this is not what they're going to be facing probably in next year if they're here for 2 years. So what is it like, telling people that this is probably the worst of it, but you got to get used to it right now?
Yeah, so I think for us, we're coming up with solutions. Obviously, the rates are higher, but we have more customers coming to us. Some of the larger logistics companies may be just trying to procure their current customers, but we're servicing our current customers and we're adding on new customers all the time. So right now with training people, it's the best time really because it's the worst time. We haven't seen a market like this in 25 years. So you have people with a little bit of experience, but once you get them all trained up and they know what's going on, the rest is just falls into place.
Kind of this trial by fire aspect.
Yeah,
definitely a fan of the trial by fire method. I think that your people perform best when they're under immense pressure, and this pressure is really kind of crazy. So I saw something, I can't remember if it was Twitter or LinkedIn the other day, about someone seeing their first $20,000 rate for a container coming over. Is that what you guys are seeing, or is it that kind of extreme yet?
Yeah, so I saw a rate the other day. It was $19,990. So $10 discount off a $20,000 rate. But I think the main thing right now is space is king. So, I can give a customer a rate all day, but unless I can get them space on the vessel, the rate really doesn't matter. And at this point right now, the carriers are raising the rates every 2 weeks. So let's say, for example, you have a shipment that's ready today. Well, we're still in June. So if that ship is not going to leave until July, ocean pricing typically is every 2 weeks, and then the carriers can give a general rate increase. So let's say that you say, Chris, I want to book this $19,000, go ahead and get it set up. Well, I'm going to tell you that the rate is only valid for June, and it's subject to a GRI. And you may come back and ask me, well, Chris, what is that GRI going to be? Well, I don't know because it's up to the carriers, the steamship lines. So if they tell me, hey, and if I go to my partner and I confirm it, say the customer has confirmed an $18,000 rate, my partners will go to secure the space, but the second the carrier tells my partner, hey, the rates went up $3,000, it's a conversation that I'm having to have with my customer where you have to have empathy because, I'm saying, hey, look, I'm trying to provide solutions, and unfortunately the carriers are trying to find the ceiling right now. They know that they can just continue to raise the rates and that space is king. Like you said the other day, I've seen $20,000 rates. I've seen $10,000 for a 140-foot to the West Coast. I've seen as high as $20,000 for 140-foot ocean container to the East Coast. And that's not even including your drayage, your customs clearance. Let's say you have duties and taxes. If it's from China and it's a 35% duty and tariff, you're paying, if it's $100,000 worth of goods, that's $35,000 on top of your ocean rate, your drayage rate. Let's say it has to have a domestic truckload. By the end of the day, you're talking, almost $100,000 that you're spending on one container. Now, how much can you fit in that container, and how much are those goods worth, and is it really worth it? And I have customers come to me all the time that say, Chris, the cost of the goods, it just doesn't make sense. We're just going to wait. And I keep telling them that, unfortunately, if you wait and you run out of goods, it's going to be even worse. And right now, we expect this to continue on until 2022. So for now, what I'm telling to my customers is be willing to have a threshold on a rate. If you can let me know what is your absolute top dollar, then I can go to the carriers and then we can work on getting that space. But for now, the carriers are just trying to find that absolute ceiling, and they'll just continue to raise the rates if people are willing to pay it.
Chris, as you said, space is king because it's been so little of it right now. I mean, we're seeing these charters of tiny boats getting $100,000 a day. I just wanted to know, we spoke to Steve Ferreira earlier, and he thought that these kind of clandestine missions is what he called them, kind of secret missions of big retailers or big forwarders that are taking on smaller boats, and that's kind of, they're not really being made public, but that's how they're sourcing capacity right now for excess capacity. I wanted to know, are there any strategies that you guys are employing to find some capacity right now in the market?
Yeah, sure. So we actually leverage our partners in Asia. So we have major co-loaders that we're working with. So they go to every single carrier every single day. They'll come with a forecast to the carrier. They'll say, hey, this is what we're expecting. They'll provide them rate, but it gives us that leverage to where we're not, married to one carrier. We're looking for every single option possible. Everybody's getting a little bit of space on the vessel. You just got to find the people that are getting the confirmed space at that rate. And it's really just about your partnerships. You must have like good partnerships in those origins that you're shipping from, because if you don't, they could just give you a $30,000 rate and can't get you space, and what any good does that do? So you have to have strong partnerships and people that have strong partnerships with the carriers as well.
Have you seen any clients just straight up being like, no, we're not taking this rate, never mind, we're done, just pulling out of all of their plan to do this because maybe they've hit their threshold of what they're willing to pay?
Certainly, yeah. So I have customers that tell me every single day, Chris, we can't accept these rates, we're just gonna wait it out. And what I try to tell them is that unfortunately, if they need their goods, they need to ship now, because if I look back in time, I've been here probably 4 times, I think, in the past 4 months. The rates have gone up almost $5,000 each time. I mean, you're talking about when I first was coming on the show, I think maybe back in November, rates were at $5,000, and I thought that was high. Now we're sending people $20,000 rates, and these people are falling out of their chairs at this point.
Yep.
Chris, are there any broad strokes to paint about what types of customers are in that boat? I mean, are smaller shippers, smaller retailers disproportionately affected by this than bigger?
So I would say everyone's affected, because what's happening is you have your larger BCO companies that were getting these 30,000 container contracts, and the steamship line said, oh, we'll give you 1,000. Well, that just disperses it to all the NVOs that are going for the spot rates. So anybody that's got a contracted rate, you're barely getting the space on that rate. You're having to book spot and premium. Premium rates are basically the only thing to get it going. So you could have a contracted rate for $4,000 a 40-foot container, but if you can't get me the space on it, what any good does that do? So I mean, whether you're a small shipper or you're a large shipper, you're still paying this extreme rate to get your goods, because like I said, it comes to a point. What are you going to do? Are you going to let your inventory run out and then wait until that happens and then maybe start paying these rates? Or are you going to get ahead of it, pay these rates? And unfortunately, maybe you're losing some money on the product, but I mean, for their customers, maybe they'll lose their customers if they don't have the product. So it's a trickle-down effect. It's just affecting everyone down the line, all the way to the consumer.
Chris, I'm really interested to hear your opinion on what Home Depot did on this decision to charter their own individual ship. Do you think that this is kind of a feasible option of where we're going for those mega shippers, for those people who both have the inventory that requires a lot of space and also has the capital to do it? Or is this kind of a one-off, Home Depot did it, but nobody else is going to even try?
Yeah, so I mean, in my opinion, I don't think that it's feasible for long term, but I think right now companies are desperate to get the goods. I mean, if you want to have your goods in your store by Christmas, you better start planning now, because even if you can get on a vessel, let's say a month from now, and then it takes 2 months or a month or 2 months to get here, the ports are still backed up in LA. There's still 10 vessels sitting outside. They're still waiting out there for 14 days. It takes a while to dray that container, put it in a truck. So right now we're just basically playing with time. So it's like, do you need your goods before Christmas? How much are you willing to pay? And do you just want to sit back and let all your inventory run out? Because that's basically where we're at.
Chris, earlier in the show, we had Andrew Lockwood from Sudoth Global Logistics. He kind of painted a picture of a ghost of Christmas future, a potential for having some empty inventory shelves towards the Christmas holiday. What needs to happen for that to be avoided before the holiday season? What do we need to do to make sure that we don't have empty shelves on retailer shelves?
Yeah, so I think it just kind of goes back to like how whenever COVID happened, all those boats, there was a bunch of blank sailings, but the carriers were the ones blanking the sailings because the demand wasn't there. Well, now the demand is actually there, so it's hard to get the space on the boats. So if you're planning for Christmas, you need to book now. And if you have any kind of forecast, you need to go ahead and send it, because what's happening is let's say you send me a forecast today. Well, I still won't even be able to get you on the boat from 4 to 6 weeks from now, even if you're willing to pay a $20,000 rate. So at this point, it's trying to just plan ahead, because I think what happened is people are starting to get behind on their inventory and their forecasting, and what's going to happen is just going to be a trickle effect. It's going to get even harder to get space. The rates are going to continue to rise. The demand's going to continue to rise, because we're going into a peak season for international freight right now. Right now is when we start shipping more than ever. So it's going to be very interesting to see what that ceiling is. Is it 20,000? Is it 30,000? How high can it go, and how high are the carriers going to continue to put those prices?
I asked you for earlier, what was his biggest lesson coming out of the first half of 2021, and then what's his biggest piece of advice going forward in the second half? Same question to you.
Oh gosh, well, I would say that obviously if I'd have known that a $6,000 rate back then was a good rate, I would have told every customer to book every container they could. Now I'm thinking a $20,000 rate is good, so I'm saying to book every single container you can, because and just the way things are going, it seems like it's just going to continue to go up and continue to get harder.
Yeah, it seems that way, right? We've been talking about this all day, that we have unbridled consumer demand, even still for goods. And the reversion is happening. We're going back to spending on services, but goods demand remains really high. But even when that reversion happens, we've got so much inventory to build up in the back half of the year and into 2022 that we're just going to have nonstop freight, it seems, for a while. All right, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
All right, hope you have a great weekend, my man.